Yep, we're set now. We're good.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another of our Lunch and Learns here with Action Coach here in Birmingham. It's great to have you with us. I'm really delighted to have Kanayo from Synergy. Hi, Kanayo.
Oh, hi, Steve. Pleasure to be here.
No, well, it's great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us on this Monday Lunch and Learn webinar. And very shortly, we're going to be talking about how robots or could robots run your business. And so really interested to hear what you've got to share with us this lunchtime, Kaneo. And when we talk about robots, actually, I've always got this sort of image in my mind of robots running a business, but I think there's a lot more to it than that. So we'll come back, Kaneo, to that very shortly. But for
Absolutely.
those of you who are listening this lunchtime, if it's your first time with us, please do put any questions and answers in the Q&A box if you're on the Zoom platform. And if you are listening live on Facebook, please do connect with us. Follow Action Coach, follow Synergy. But if you have any questions this lunchtime, put them in the comments box. And we'd love to know where you're listening to us from. We reach out across Birmingham, but further afield as well. So if you're listening to us, do tell us where you're listening to us from. Give us a like, maybe a love heart if it's your second time back, if you've come back for more. And certainly put your questions and answers in there. But back to you, Kaneo. It's great to have you with us. Your contact details on the screen. Just want to introduce a bit about yourself and Synergy, Kaneo. Oh, you're on mute. I think you've just hit mute. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Again, thanks again, Steve, and thanks for having me on the webinar. So a bit of a backstory. My name is Kanayo Eruchalo, and I run a company called Synergy, obviously. And now Synergy has been around for the last 10 years. We like to think we're one of the better kept secrets. We turned 10 in this October. So we started 2010 October.
Wow.
And yeah, absolutely.
I hadn't realized, Kanayo, 10 years.
10 years, absolutely. Feels a lot longer than that. But
that's a great milestone. I mean, you and I know how many businesses struggled in the first 10 years. So to get to that milestone is a real credit to you and the organization.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Thanks a lot. We're looking forward to the next 10 years.
Absolutely.
Touch wood,
yeah.
We're still here, helping out the way we can, the best we can. Yeah. So like I said, I mean, for us, our journey really has been, it's been a mixed bag. We started out live as a digital transformation consultancy focused on helping large businesses with their, to leverage technology as part of their compliance and growth strategy. If you remember back in 2008, on the back of the subprime and the Great Recession, as they call it, a lot of financial services institutions had to go through a transformation exercise from a compliance standpoint. So we were part of that journey, helping them to put in place process automation systems to enable them to meet various requirements by various reporting regulatory authorities. And as a result of some of the work that we did with our clients, we're able to help them save time, meet their time obligations. We tracked it and we have about 300,000 hours in time savings and about 12 million in cost savings to those organizations. Sort of like 2019, back end of 2018, early 2019, we decided to pivot a little and see how we can help small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses to do something similar. And that's really how we got started in our journey on building robots. That's how the whole robots story came about. And 2010, we all know what's happened with the pandemic on. There's a lot of drive for efficiencies, cost efficiencies, productivity improvement, doing more with less and all that. So I think it's been quite timeless for us. And we're actually looking forward to the future. And that's really me, Steve.
Well, I guess as I say, when I talk about robots in business, many people have this sort of thing in their mind, don't they? They think about a bottling plant, they think about a manufacturing plant, and that's certainly, if you'd talked to me about robots, a couple of years ago, that would have been my my experience of seeing them in action, but also my knowledge of how robots run business. But you and I know, Kanayo, from our previous conversations that it's all about, first of all, having clear systems. And I couldn't resist, I'm afraid, a webinar without a bit of Lego. but clear systems is where it starts, and then I guess it's how we can automate it from there. And last time we were together, Kanayo, we talked about making cups of tea, didn't we?
Absolutely.
And thinking about, the stages. But I do, one of the things I love about Lego is, is a clear process. When we open the book and we can go one of two ways. We can either follow the process and come out with a product intended, or we can go completely off the wall and use our imagination, but we never quite know what's going to come out at the other end. It's sort of a bit of a, wait and see. But yeah, I guess, to have a succinct and an efficient business, we need to have a clear system and a clear process to follow to ensure we get what we want at the other end, whether that's a new client, whether it's a product, whether it's a service. And I'm just interested to hear, Kanayo, from you now in terms of, what can we do to help automate our businesses, and I guess going back to our original question, could robots, I'm trying visioning ahead now, but could robots, what parts of our business could robots be running in 10 years time in our business? It's systemization, efficiency are big factors, aren't they?
Absolutely. And in a nutshell, so the question you ask is, what parts of our business can a robot run today and in the future? Today, virtually any part of the business that is systemized, that you have a step-by-step and that has simple rules guiding how you do it, can be robotized, right? So you can actually get a robot to start doing some of the things that are a bit more manual, a bit more repetitive, takes a lot of time, but are all based on simple yes/no rules. All right. So think of everything from, do you know what? I need to send out posts on LinkedIn, right? Every so often. And I have a Word document that contains that I've spent time creating different posts that I want to send out. It needs to go out on a particular day and time. As long as there's a process for doing that, the robot can do that. Right.
I guess many people traditionally think of, take the Lego on the screen. Maybe people think of robots as being manufacturing. Somebody's got to repeat that stage 2 1,000 times a day. They're going to get a robot to do it. But you're saying there's many other aspects of the business, whether it's social media, admin, many other processes in the business that could be automated.
Absolutely. So so like you said, traditionally, there's been that vision of robots as physical machines who carry out work, and they exist. I mean, we are into Industry 4.0 at the moment, and robots are really driving trade and commerce, right? In China, as an example, there are over 140,000 robots in production. In the US, about 39,000 of them. In the UK, something similar. Right. So physical robots are going to be a thing, and they're going to be taking care of all the mundane things that human beings typically shouldn't actually be doing. We are creative beings. We like making things. The grunt work, those elements that don't require cognitive ability isn't what we are best suited for. Right. So it helps us to create work. In the same way, I mean, some of the things that's happened is, if you look at industrialization and industrial revolution, we are now in a knowledge age. So almost 50% of our workforce is based on what we do on computers, right? But if you look at what we still do on the computer, 30 to 40% of that is still manual, repetitive grunt work. So we still end up copying and pasting across systems, across different applications. We still spend a lot of time opening emails and looking at attachments and forwarding it on. We still end up moving files from one folder to another folder. A lot of admin type work that don't necessarily add value to us as human beings is what we spend 30 to 40% of our time on computers doing. So, hey, it's up for disruption. We're saying, let's remove the robot from the human beings and let robots do what they are best suited for, which is prep the work for us so that we do what we do best.
Absolutely. The one example that always comes to the front of my mind, Kanayo, is I having worked for 15 years in public sector and large corporates before coming to Action Coach, I was always the one person walking around with a bag of receipts at the end of every month, having to put my expenses claims in. And since working with Action Coach, we've systemized it. So it's all on the mobile phone now. I simply scan my receipt and the mobile phone does the rest. Well, the system does the rest of the work for me. It files that receipt into the right category. And then at the end of the month, I just press send and off it goes and puts any expenses into the business. And integrates it with the account system. And there's a great example, I guess, of taking me out of the process. I'm not sitting there with a receipt in an Excel spreadsheet thinking, well, what was that for? When was that coffee? And what was that travel for? And have I got a receipt for this? You know, hours of my time, which could be better used, dare I say it, you know, the contribution I can make to the organization by doing so much more valuable, much more worthwhile to drive the business forwards. And I guess that's the point you're making, isn't it, in terms of how can we take that mundane work away from the humans and give it to a system, a robot that can do it for us.
Absolutely. That's the whole idea, Steve.
So what sort of examples, I mean, what could we do? What could we systemize in our business, Kanayo?
I'm thinking. So what areas would most benefit from robots? So if you think of your business, right? In every business, we have some of the core functions include HR, administration. We're talking finance and accounting, like you mentioned, where you have receipts, customer service, and operations and logistics are key functions within the business, right? So what are the things that you could get robots to start, digital workers to start performing on your behalf? So everything, think of it from if you had in HR, you can get a robot to, if you're really growing the business and you need to recruit new staff, then everything from publishing the job role on the various job boards, collating CVs, sorting through them, and then shortlisting candidates can be done by robots, right? The bots can actually schedule the interviews that you want, as an example, get feedback and things like that. So all the things that goes into recruitment admin can be done by a bot. Customer service, think client onboarding. So if you have a set of processes for onboarding your clients, robot can be taught how to do all that. All right, sales, order, and invoice processing is another area. Inventory management is another area. I mean, the list goes on and on. Finance and accounting, I've already shown you some of this before in the past, Steve. Invoice processing, bank reconciliations. In fact, as we go on, I'll probably just show you a demo, so you see, so that you can see how a robot can actually do something like bank reconciliation, and by so doing, save any organization loads and lots of time on basic tasks.
Absolutely. Feel free to, if you want to do a live demo, or you've got some slides you want to share, Kanayo, feel free. Claire's just asking a question. When we say bot, do we mean robot? Is there something else? Is a bot different to a robot? So just for her benefit and anybody else who's listening. Yeah.
So sorry. When we say bot, it's usually a short form of robot. So it's the nerd in me, I guess. So but when you say bots, it's robots. And software robots.
We've talked and worked together before, Kanayo, so I realize what you're talking about, but I just want, for the clarity for Claire, she was asking that question. So great question, Claire. No question is ever too silly in these Lunch and Learn webinars. We're all here to learn at the end of the day. Kanayo, did you want to share your screen? I know you got a couple of slides. Or if you want to do a live demo, you're very welcome to do so. And for those listeners, just while Kanayo is sharing a screen, if any listeners want to submit any questions, got any things you want to clarify, such as Claire, please do put them in the Q&A box. And if you're listening to us on Facebook, please do put them in the comments box below.
Okay. Yeah, so Steve, can you still hear me?
I can absolutely hear you. Yep, no problem at all.
Fab. So what I'll do now is to give us a let's see what it looks like from a robot's perspective. So I'm going to this is an environment, and this is a robot controller. And what I'm going to get the robot to do is the very, very basic. Let me move this around. I'm going to get a robot to actually do some bank reconciliation in Xero, right? Which is pretty straightforward process. Typically you have typically what happens is you log into Zero and with your credentials, and then go into your organization, you go into a business account, and then you start going through matching the transactions you have in your bank with transactions that you have in Zero. Now, it's very straightforward, straight through processing. Typically, look at the invoice name, look at the reference and the value, match that against what you have in Zero. If it doesn't match, then what you have to now go through a process of validation, which includes looking for where the receipts, probably you haven't posted the transaction in Zero and all that. And then once that's done, you can do the matching. What we're going to get the robot to do is to go through the exact same thing, right? It's going to log. I'm going to get it started now. And it's going to open the browser, physically open the browser, as you can see. The robot has his own email address and password. He's going to key in his email address and password and log in, as you and I would typically. It's going to navigate to the company, and then, like I said, business bank account, clicks on it, and it starts the reconciliation exercise. Now, it's going very quickly, but I can assure you that it's actually looking to the left and matching what you've got there to what you've got on the right before it clicks on OK, which is typically what you and I would do. Now, it's going to come across transactions that it doesn't recognize, that it can't find and match. And what it's going to do is it's going to go do a physical find to see whether it can get those invoices. At the moment, all it's doing is looking for those ones that are automatically matched and make sure that the details are correct and clicks OK, right? Now, typically, this bit that is going through will take you a bit of time to go through, but it's finished all the ones that are straight through. So these are 28 invoices or transactions. Now, what it's doing at the moment is actually looking for specific transactions that it couldn't find that are not automatically matched, and is looking for them. If it finds them, it will reconcile. If it can't, then it's been trained to leave a note for me to go in there and now do the reconciliation, because it means I have to either go to the back end and make sure that the invoice has been posted in Zero if it hasn't been, or do a bit of manual work, right? But if he does find it, he's going to actually look at, find it. So in some cases, remember, in some cases, you might have a vendor who makes a part payment, as an example, or you might find a vendor who makes multiple payments at once. So it pays 2 invoices, as an example, at once, right? Those ones won't be automatically matched by Zero. So you have to physically go in, do a find and match and do that. So when he recognizes that, it's actually going to do the exact same you and I would do, which is it will read, see the invoice number, and then on the back of that, do what it needs to do. Okay.
That was great. Claire's just asking another question, Kanayo. Yep. Is finance the only area we can, or is it the first area to sort of automate? I think she's wondering if it's just finance or other areas as well.
No, so it does, like I said before, it does. Finance is a fairly good example, but it does everything from recruitment. It does recruitment, it does, you can apply it in client services. So client onboarding and offboarding, as an example, say sales, orders, inventory management. So that it has a lot of applications outside of finance.
And just out of interest, a question from me, really. If you were to implement this bot or this robot process in your organization, how much time would you save?
So on average, it cuts processing time by as much as 90%.
90%,
yeah.
Wow.
By as much as 90%. So in this example, so that kind of process that would have taken you, typically would have taken you about 45 minutes to do, and the bot did it in about 6 minutes.
Wow. 6 minutes from 45, huge difference. And how much? Another question from Paul: how much staff training would be required for that sort of system to be implemented in your organization?
Sorry?
How much staff training would be needed to implement? Paul's asking.
Zero. There's no staff training required per se. So if you think, the best way to think of robots is to think of hiring a new member of staff, So the onboarding process is typically handled by us. So we do the training. Once we understand, we will do a lot of the legwork, right? So part of what we do is understand the process that they do, that you use to carry out such transactions in your organization. And then we'll use that to program the bot. And then once the bot is deployed, it's doing exactly what you expect any team member to do that's properly trained and doesn't require any hand holding. So the only thing you need to know how to do is to click that button that I showed you, if you think about
Brilliant.
it. Absolutely. And in some cases as well. So you can actually have the robot run on a schedule. So you can actually program the robot to start work at 9 o'clock in the morning. So I haven't got to be involved in that piece of work at all. So 9 o'clock, you start doing what you need to do, or 6 o'clock in the evening when the rest of us have gone home, you take over the system and continue working till the next morning.
Brilliant. I've got a question from Simon here. It's a two-part, Kanayo. He says he hasn't got zero and hasn't got any robots in his organization so far.
Yep.
Where should he start?
Where do you start? The first thing to do will probably be I'm going to do a plug-in here. Have a chat with it. Have a chat with us. What will typically happen is we will get an understanding of what you need to implement. And then on the back of that, we do a process assessment, which gives you an idea on the return on investment. How much will it cost you? How much time savings will you get? How much cost savings will you get? And then you make an investment decision. And then on the back of that, it's really us doing the work for you. We try, so our vision and mission really is to make it as painless as possible for anybody to have a digital robot working in the organization. Steve.
And I guess from Paul's perspective, it's about, not Paul, sorry, it was Simon. It's about mapping out every aspect of the business, isn't it? So going through every aspect of the business, thinking, how do I do this, or how is this done in my business? And then is it a case of looking at those simpler processes first? Is that the best place to start, or is it better to start with, as you've demonstrated there, the financial side?
No. So Steve, I think I like the Lego example that you gave, and I'll use that in this instance, right? As long as there's a step 1 to 10, you understand what the step 1 to 10 of doing that particular task is, then you should start there. So I think the only decision that needs to be made is whether the time that you spend doing that task, right, and that you save by transferring it to a robot is equitable with investment, really. So, and typically, if you do a lot of analysis, so the same thing you've been talking about, Steve, and that which is one of the things I love about Action Coach, is that whole bit about systemization and time savings. If you do an analysis of all the tasks that you do and understand how much time you spend on each of the tasks, and understand what level of competence is required. If the level of competency required is low and you have a rule around it, step 1 to 10, as in this example, then I'll say that it's worth starting from there. It really doesn't matter where you want to start, whether it's finance or client. Think of where your biggest pain points are and think of whether you have a clear process that you can follow to complete the task. If the answer to the two questions are yes, then
yes, and we often talk at Action Coach about skill level and enjoyability. If you're not enjoying it and you haven't got a skill in it, then maybe it's time to either delegate or systemize.
Both.
Absolutely delegate it to the bot.
Absolutely.
And just out of interest, Kanayo, what have been the most unusual systems or processes that you've automated at Synergy, and what sort of time has been saved?
Oh, the most unusual. I don't think that word I can actually associate with that word. Because so in terms of time savings, I guess the one that has saved the most time, this goes back to corporate. So is from a compliance perspective, we've done a piece of work for a large corporate that ended up saving them about 120,000 hours annually, and we translated to about 9 million euros. So that's probably the largest. I don't think I can define it as the most unusual, because I think the thing about what we do is as long as we can put a process around it. So part of the work, part of the initial work or the most heavy lifting that happens is actually defining the process. A lot of times, most organizations haven't got it written down. They haven't got a clear sight of how they do it. So that piece of work, just defining and optimizing and improving it in itself, is probably what's unusual and interesting about it, Steve.
Right. And another question from Jazzfish. She's just asking how easy it is to integrate automation and robots with human interaction, and do the two work well together, or does it need to be just automated or just human?
I think the beautiful thing about robotic automation is that it works, is non-invasive. It works with what you've got, and you don't lose the control. The analogy I use with a lot of people is, if you think back in the day, right, and it's still the case. So back in the day, I'm about to show my age now, but back in the day, I used to enjoy two series that used to show on TV: The Bionic Woman and the $6 million Man. Right now, that was the beginning of cybernetics and all the kind of things.
Yes,
but
yeah.
if you think of the robot as your bionic arm, then you get to understand how well you can work together with your robot. So in my case, as an example, all you need to do is I finish all the work that I need to do on my computer, but I have a lot of admin things that I need to do. And just before I close for the day, 6 p.m. or 5 p.m., whatever it is, I click a button and the robot gets to work. It knows what it needs to do. So it's actually complementing my work for me. It does a lot of the prep work. It does a lot of the admin things. And the next morning, if there are bits in there that still require my attention, I get to do it. But so that's how intuitive. So it doesn't replace human beings. That's not the plan. The plan is for us to complement us and get us to do the things that we love doing, but do a lot more work and be a lot more productive in the process. Don't know if that answers the question, Steve.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It's about, maximizing, as we mentioned earlier on, the value we can make to an organization using our own skills and experience, and those mundane things can be done automatically. I think the bot or the robot that I guess I'm most familiar with, Kanayo, is whenever I go to many websites now, and a little box will pop up at the bottom. I don't know if that's if I presume it's all automated in many cases, where it say, "Please, can I help you?" You go to Action Coach's own website, and we've got one on ours. It'll say, "Please, can I help?" or "How can I help you?" And there's a whole range of questions which have been pre-programmed, so that we can give information back and help our prospects without there having to be somebody there manning those inquiries all the time and sort of almost semi-filtering them. And I guess that's the same on many websites now. But imagine the number of man hours that's saving in that process.
Absolutely, chatbots are an example of robots as well. So they're more on the front end, but you are exactly to your point. They help. Instead of spending time on chats, you think of all your frequently asked questions, and you can program a bot to answer them on your behalf based on cues. Absolutely.
And if you implement things like that, I didn't realize it was called a chat bot, but a chat bot or a bot in another part of the organization, how much support is needed to make sure that keeps running efficiently? How often does it come up with errors and et cetera, et cetera? Is it fairly simple process to implement and sort of hassle free?
So absolutely. So because the robots or digital workers are trained to provide feedback on their work via emails and logs. So the level of hand-holding required is almost negligible, if not non-existent in some cases. So like I mentioned before, you can actually schedule the robot to do work at certain times of the day or night, as the case may be. And then once he's finished doing his work, he sends you a report on all the things that he does or that is done. And if there are exceptions, or if there are things that he couldn't do based on the rule set, he'll come back to you with feedback as well to let you know exactly what you need to go in and do yourself. But everything depends on how reliable your system and the applications are, really and truly, Steve.
And we've got a question from Claire Kanayo. She's asking, the example you gave there, how much preparation and pre-programming was involved in terms of hours to get that working the way that you demoed it?
So there are two sides to the conversation. So on one side, how much work is required by the business? I'll say all in, you're looking at probably a couple of hours, and I'll explain. So like I said, the standpoint is understanding what the process is. So we spend time with the business and actually recorded them doing the work. So someone actually did the step-by-step, this is what you click, these are the rules around it, sort of thing. And then we did a recording of that, and then we use that to train the robot. So there's that time spent recording, watching them do the work and recording the steps involved. And then time spent once we had finished, mapping out the process, reviewing it with the business as well, just to confirm that we had a clear understanding of what it needs to do and what the exceptions to the rules were. So all in, maybe 2 to 3 hours.
Right. And I guess your mapping of the process takes me to our conversation last time, Kanayo, making a cup of tea. You asked me the question last time we were together, how many stages are there making a cup of tea? And, I've had answers. I asked the same question to my clients, and you get everything from 5 to 50. And everyone's perception of the process can be very different, can't it? So I guess that just takes me on to my next question. Are there off-the-shelf products, or is every single bot that's created in a business and bots that you create, is it bespoke to that business, or do you have a cup of tea making bot that you can buy off the shelf and then tweak? How does that work?
Because at the moment, if you bear in mind that what the robots do really is to help you mind the gaps that you have in your already existing systems. So to a degree, it depends on the system that you're using, right? So you can buy an off-the-shelf robot and have it configured to your business. So you'll probably come with about 80% of what you need, and then it still needs to be trained on 20% of how you do things in your business. So every business, we like to think that every business is almost the same. So the way as an example, I'm thinking Infusionsoft. If you use that for your CRM and marketing automation, it has a standard way of doing things, right? But if you think of your business, you probably still need to configure it and put your own flavor on it to make it work specifically for you. So it's the same way. A robot will come with 80% of what you want, and then we train it on a few of the things that you need to do. However, if you have a bespoke system that is built for Action Coach and Action Coach alone, then it's not off the shelf. It has to be built for you. But again, the beauty of robots and robotic process automation is that whereas with any other system, you need to have months and months of build and integration and all that kind of work. With robotic process automation, you can actually have a prototype working robot in your organization inside of a month.
And I guess going back to our cup of tea example, Kanayo, I'm guessing, I often use that phrase, but I'm presuming that the environment in which the organization is operating. So take our cup of tea. If it's a cup of tea, as in the receptionist is making that for a visitor, or you're a cafe serving a cup of tea, it might be a similar process in some ways, but the environment will have impacts on that how that robot operates and the kind of stages that it needs to consider. And I guess that's the same for any robot in any organization.
Absolutely. But it's interesting you say that, because cup of tea in different organizations, I expect them to be slightly different. But the one that I find very interesting is when you come into one organization and the way they make that cup of tea is vastly different. So you can have, depending on who's making the cup of tea today, it will be different from how you make it is probably different from how I make it or how the next person makes it. So that variation in how we make the cup of tea is part of the challenge that organizations face, and part of the reasons why robotics helps as well, because it helps you to streamline your process, find out what works best, and then roll it out as much as you can. So productization really is the name of the game.
I guess a great advantage of bots and automating the organization is consistency. you know, as with our Lego example earlier on, if you follow every step of the instruction clearly into as it's described, you'll get the same outcome every time. But if you get a different person making a cup of tea, perhaps using the tea, leaving the tea bag in first or whatever, you're going to get a slightly different product at the end of it. So a great advantage of automation is that consistent outcome, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and I tell people all the time, I say there are a lot of inefficiencies that come from doing manual repetitive tasks, and it has a lot of impact on the business. I mean, loads of examples. If you think about any business, there's reduction in productivity as a result of different ways of doing things and having to do it manually, right? You have they have increased error rates, you have increased labor costs, like you mentioned, inconsistencies in workflow. And then when the business needs to scale, you can't really scale easily because one, you're thinking the number of errors will increase, right? And then you probably need to have more people who understand the nitty-gritties of how to run the business. You have to recruit more people to be able to achieve the scale that you want. You know, so that, yeah, like you said, I mean, the variability the inefficiencies has a lot of impact on the business.
Absolutely. I've got a couple of questions here, Kanayo. I don't know if you want to answer them. I hope you might be able to give your view on them anyway. As we've been sitting here, we've heard that Wales has gone into a short lockdown. So Jenny's question is very pertinent. She says, the impact of systemization with lockdown and working remotely. How easy is it to systemize an organization when all your workers are remote?
It is as simple as having a Zoom facility, video conferencing.
Right.
Helps because it's all about collaboration, isn't it? So there are loads of tools that are out there that can help you to systemize your organization. Think of so if you need to map it out the same way you have on your screen at the moment, if you needed to do a process map, you can get a tool like Lucid Chat. It's in the cloud, is on the cloud, so anybody can access it from anywhere, and you can actually share the process map and collaborate on it. You can use Zoom to do that. That way you can have a meeting, you can have breakout sessions if you want to. Really and truly, I believe technology has made it possible for teams across the globe, irrespective of where you are. You don't have to be physically sat in the same room to be able to systemize your business as it were today. And in terms of deployment, cloud technologies has made it possible for you to deploy anywhere really in the world. We work with clients as far away as in Canada, and we're sat here. We've had meetings. We'll have teams that are sat in various places. Doesn't impact workers at all.
So from what you're saying, what I'm hearing there is that actually having robots working in the business when we're working remotely in these challenging times actually can help efficiency and speed of work hugely.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, from that perspective, if you're able to hand over a lot of the lower level work to robots, it frees you up so that you can do the higher value activities. At the moment, I believe that the focus of any business should be on growth. So any activity, they say there are two sides to any conversation in any, or three sides, but two sides really. So it's in business, it's either you're making the widgets or you're selling the widgets. That's all there is to it. And then obviously you need to collect your money for having sold them. But it's either you're making them or you're selling them. So what we're saying is if you can hand over the bits that are not about getting the business to a robot, then it focuses you and your team on how to get new business, how to keep existing business, and how to grow the transactions that you have with business, which I think, Steve, you talk about all the time.
Absolutely, we do. Yes, yeah, indeed. And it's that question about scalability, actually. So if you've got robots and systems in the business, how easy is it then, Kanayo, to scale it up?
It becomes infinitely easier to do it. So I'll give you an example. So remember when I said you can cut your processing time by 90%?
90%, yes. Yeah.
Right. So imagine cutting your processing time by 90%, or let's even say 50%, right? To make it a bit more realistic in people's minds, 50% slash the time by 50%. That means you can do 2 times as much Okay. Now, given the fact that the robots can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, all of a sudden you're thinking I have 168 hours every week instead of 40-hour weeks, right? So that in itself scales your business to the nth degree.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're maximizing every hour of every day, and through the night as well in many cases. As you say, a lot of those mundane tasks, reconciliations, admin tasks can be done throughout the night, ready for employees to come in the next day. Jasve is just asking, does the deployment of bots require changes to IT applications? Is that something that's required in many businesses, Kanayo, or do most of us have the systems we need to get started?
Not necessarily. So the bots can work with the systems that you have. If all you're using is Excel, then it can work with Excel and Word and all that. In some cases, you might want to introduce new applications, but that's not to accommodate the bot. It's probably because there are areas in your business that require automation. But essentially, the bot can work with whatever it is that you have at the moment. In some cases, there have been examples where we've actually had clients slow down on their investment in new technology because the robot will enable them to optimize what they've got. So for us, it's all about optimize first, then maximize second, right? Before you innovate, make sure you've optimized what you've got. Without naming particular applications, but someone has had a legacy system, they've used it for years and years and years. The biggest challenge with it is the fact that it probably requires a lot more processing power, right, and knowledge on the part of the users for you to get maximum efficiency from it. And they were thinking of moving to something different. But said, okay, well, if that's still working, then really all you need to do is the manual elements of it, you can actually pass on to a robot to do. And then humans can now do the more cognitive side of the processing, right? And that elongates the time that they can use the system for and get more value from it while they're rolling out the new application.
And I'm just thinking aloud here, Kanayo, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking there's probably two sides of looking at this. One is about, where is my time being taken up with employees in the business? How can I automate that? I'm wondering if the other side is, looking at where the opportunities are in the marketplace. So what are the pain points for customers buying from my products or services in my industry? How can I systemize? How can I provide a better service, possibly using automation to provide a better customer experience for my potential clients going forward and my existing clients? Where can I compete and how can I compete against my competitors by automating my business?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it goes back to what we said earlier about if you can hand over a lot of it creates competitive advantage because you can do more with the same resources. So, and then because you can pass off a lot of the manual lower value tasks to them, you can focus on the higher margin work, right? And you can do a lot more, you can get a lot more business, leveraging the robots.
Yeah, I'm gonna age myself a bit like you now, Kanayo. I remember working alongside estate agents back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when they were going through the process of moving away from sticky back photos on pieces of paper to starting to have properties online, and then automating that process so people could then access house tours online. So then start to compete, that automation of viewings, to take time away from the staff, from the agents selling the properties, and also filtering out those people who are just being nosy from those who are interested buyers. Just an example that's coming to front of my mind about how they've streamlined both the customer service experience, but also helped to really look for serious buyers who are interested in those particular properties. So, it is about looking at what your competition are doing, I guess, and seeing how can you simplify, how can you speed up, and also use automation to really drill down to your buyers' needs and look at the experience they're going to get from you as an organization and help move your business forwards.
Absolutely, Steve. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so obviously I'm presuming that every bot is going to be priced individually, Kanayo, but I'm presuming that that's where a conversation with you would come in terms of thinking about, well, what is the cost of a process in my organization, what's the cost of the bot, and then making that decision about is it a valuable, is it, you know, a worthwhile investment in my business to automate different parts. Is that where the conversation with you would start in terms of the next steps?
No, I think really, yes. So the first step really is understanding that value. Once we can understand what the value is, then the cost element really becomes because it's neither here nor there. Because I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but we put our money where our mouth is, and we say to anybody who's qualified to really come, let's have a chat. If we think we can add value to you before you even invest in having a robot, we want you to understand fully appreciate what it can do for you in your business, which is one of the reasons why we give a 2-month trial use of our robots to all our clients, really. You know, if once you have it deployed, if it doesn't meet the productivity target that we set or we've agreed, then by all means, in 2 months' time, we'll decommission it at no cost to them. You know, but I'm glad to say that so far we haven't had anybody say no. Because really for us is democratizing robotics. If you think back in the day when this technology came out, and at enterprise level you're looking at tens of thousands of pounds to deploy, but we've been able to leveraging technology, leveraging cloud applications, and a little bit of what we preach as well, having bots build bots. We've been able to bring down some of the cost of the deployment to hundreds of pounds rather than tens of thousands of pounds.
And I get, well, nobody's saying no, Kanayo, is why you're celebrating 10 years in business. It's clearly adding a lot of value to a lot of businesses around Birmingham. Simon's just saying, are there particular industries where this works better than others? I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Kanayo.
So I think the rule of thumb is if you have if you drive a lot of volume, if you do a lot of work on your computer desktop that is voluminous, that is manual and repetitive, think more in terms of function rather than industry. So every industry needs HR. But if you're thinking, oh, I need to do a lot of, I drive a lot of volumes within HR, then you're probably thinking recruitment organizations or recruitment agencies. You're thinking fairly sized businesses that are on a fast growth or hyper growth curve that need to bring a lot of people in. So we speaking with clients who are in HR, and they're having to go through about between 250 and 1,000 CVs a week. Now that's a very good use case for robots. Within finance, you think finance and accounting is another, like I mentioned, another area, and every business has finance and accounting. It just depends on the scale of the business. You know, so we think more in terms of function rather than industry. But we're finding that a lot of trade is coming through e-commerce. Within the e-commerce space, within professional service, you're thinking accountants and bookkeepers, and then, like I mentioned, recruitment agencies, and in some cases, digital marketing as well, just because they're doing a lot of client onboarding and things like that.
Yeah, and for me, it sort of feels like it falls into two groups. As you said, that there's back office functions that apply to every single business, you know, sales, accountancy, HR, marketing, etc. And then there's a delivery of your specific service in your industry, which may well be automated, but that's where the bespoke approach will be more applicable, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm conscious we've been almost 50 minutes. It's amazing where time flies, isn't it? But
absolutely.
I know you've done your demo for us. If anybody wants to sort of dip their toe in the water, take that first step in thinking about automating their business, or maybe they've been automating it and want to look at how they can improve the productivity or improve those processes, what does that look like? What's the best step to take first of all with you, Kanayo?
Steve, I mean, the best step to take will be to obviously get in touch with us, either through yourselves or directly on the details shared with you. But let's have a chat. Let me understand like where the business is and what the target is for the business. If the business is actually looking to really scale, very quickly, or they're quite big at the moment, they're looking at cost efficiencies. Let's have that initial conversation. Like I said, explain to them how they can apply robots in their specific situation. And then next step really will be to do two things. One, if we see that there's value to having a further conversation, we'll do a process assessment, an ROI for them, or return on investment calculation for them, and then they have the 2 months free use. It's having come from being referred to by you, Steve. I think that's probably the next steps.
Brilliant. Well, I hope that's really clear for those who are listening either live with us this lunchtime or perhaps listening in later on in the day or later on in the week. Just out of interest, Jazva is asking what can she do before having that conversation. And I guess my response is to understand your processes more clearly and think about the mapping and the different parts of your organization. But Kanayo, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think really you don't need to do anything. Pick up the phone, give us a call, drop us an email. Let's have that 15-20-minute conversation in the first instance, so that you can understand and appreciate how you can apply it to your particular circumstance. I think don't overthink it. It's simpler than a lot of people think. So rather than spend time thinking, oh, what process could it be? Where can I use it? Jump on the phone. Let's have that 20-minute conversation. I might be able to point them in the right direction, Steve.
Brilliant. That sounds like a great offer from you, Kanayo. So if anybody's interested in how they can systemize or automate their business, is asking that question themselves, could robots run my business? Then pick up the phone, have a conversation, contact myself, and I can pass you on to Kanayo, or contact Kanayo directly. The details are on the screen just there. Kanayo, is there anything else you want to add just to finish up before we go our separate ways this lunchtime?
Yeah, Steve, I think besides saying a very big thank you to you and Action Coach for the opportunity to contribute to all that's going on at the moment. The only thing I'd like to leave us with is to ask everyone that's on the call to imagine for a second, having low-cost assistants who can do everything, so think about everything that you do in the business. A workforce that can work 24/7, 365 days a year, easily scales to handle your grunt work, completes work efficiently and effectively, higher degrees of accuracy, cost you less than your business as your business grows, and increases your revenue and profit potentials without you having to do any work. That's the future of work. We're here to help businesses to create more time to grow. And we believe that by working with businesses, by having Action Coach involved in the process as well, all of us collectively can stem this tide and get through the next year or so and the recession successfully. So thanks again for the time,
Brilliant.
Steve.
No, thank you. No, just again, I'm thinking out sort of aloud as I say this to you. But 2020 has indeed, in the organisations I've been working with, my clients, really challenged us to think differently about how we can deliver our services. I think every single one of us on this call, every single business I've been working with, has had to consider how they can deliver their products, how they can make their products to deliver their service in a different way. And for many business owners, it's taken them back to when they first started their business. The number of changes we all made in our business in those first few years to streamline, to get the systems working. And then we tend to get too comfortable, don't we? And I guess this is now 2020 is about pushing us out of our comfort zone to think about how can we do things differently? How do we need to do things differently to ensure our businesses don't stagnate, but they continue to grow and prosper and be like yours, a business that's been around 10 years, helping other businesses systemize and deliver their services in the most efficient and effective way possible. So that would be my thought to leave you all with this evening, this afternoon. Just think about that when you first opened your business, the number of changes you've made, the changes you've made this year. Don't forget to look back and think, since March this year, for the last 6 or 7 months, how have you changed your business? What systems have you put in place? And could any of those systems you've changed be automated? And if they could, before you think can they or not, have a conversation with Kanayo, have a conversation with me, and I'm sure we'll be able to help you and point you in the right direction to think about how you can ensure your business is in the fit and best place possible to continue growing into 2021. So it is really about challenging our mindsets and getting out of that comfort zone and thinking, how can we move our business forward? How can we grow our business year on year, week on week? But thank you, Kanayo, for joining us this lunchtime. It's been absolutely fantastic, as always, having you. It's always a real insight to hear. You know, technology is not my something I've grown up with necessarily, but it's such an important part of all of our businesses now and all of our lives. We need to embrace it and ensure we maximize its potential going forwards, don't we?
Absolutely. I think right now is my final message to everyone will be embrace technology. If you're a small business, leverage it to the hilt. It used to be a time when it was so expensive to have automation in a small business. But now, for nickels and dimes, you can automate your business to the hilt, and not only does it free up your time, but it enables you to go back, like you said, Steve, to enjoying the things that you enjoyed about your business in the past, while seeing the business grow. It's now possible to have £1 million businesses that have very low headcount.
Absolutely. And if you're somebody listening this lunchtime and what we've been talking about has really intrigued you somewhat, then I just, one final plug, shameless plug from me, Kanayo, just to share our 30X program here at Action Coach. We've been going slightly longer, not in Birmingham, but globally. We've been going 30 years. And as a result, Brad Sugars, who started Action Coach, has put together 30 years of his experience in 30-minute videos, one a day, for 30 days to help you work on your business and grow your business. And we're launching that this month for just £30 a week to sign up. And delivery systemization is included in there to talk. Brad talks about how he systemized his business. So if you're not sure where to start, it's a great starting point to think about, how can I grow my business? How can I systemize my business? And then take it that next step further by having a conversation with Kanayo in terms of, really what bots, what automating can I put into my organization. So if you're interested in that, please do give us a call. Say 30 years of business experience into 30 videos is a great place to think about how you can change your business and take it into the 2021. But for now, thank you, Kanayo, for joining us. It's been great having you with us. I know you're with us later on before Christmas in November, I believe, just taking this conversation to the next step. So we look forward to hearing what you've got to share with us in November. I think we're focusing a lot more on finances in November, aren't we? Is that right, Kanayo, in our next conversation?
Absolutely, Steve. So the next session will be purely around finance and accounts. I'm looking.
That'd be... Yeah. So
Absolutely.
If finances are an area where you think, actually, I could add real value in automating my business, well, please do join us later in November, and we'll be talking about that with Kanayo. But for now, Kanayo, thank you so much. Your contact details on the screen. If you're listening to us later on in the day or later in the week, please do still put any questions or comments on Facebook or email us, contact us. Our contact details are on there. But for now, stay well, stay safe, and have a great week. Thanks, Kanayo, and thanks all of those who've joined us this lunchtime. Take care now.
Thanks, Steve. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.